Good afternoon, I'm Dennis Galecki. Welcome to the 457th Imagine Greater Buffalo program and 79th virtual Imagine lecture hosted by one of America's finest library systems, the Buffalo and Erie County Public Library. Thanks so much for joining us today. This program is created by the Center for the Study of Art, Architecture, History, and Nature and ImagineLifelongLearning.com. Now, we're going to start with our speakers shortly, but first, a little housekeeping. Everyone watching will be muted during our speakers presentation. So if you have a question, please type it into the chat box and we'll get to as many as we can. This program is being recorded, so you'll be able to watch it again later on the Downtown Central Library's Facebook page and their YouTube channel, and we hope you share it with your friends and networks. Now, this is week 2 of the month, so our story is design and architecture and design. And this really touches on history, obviously week 3, but it's really about how do you tell a story. Buffalo has a presidential story, and we're going to hear how that's physically happening and digitally happening. Our featured speakers are Bren Price and Peter Schiffmacher. Bren T. Price Sr. is a retired school teacher, administrator, and educational consultant who is now a trustee of the Buffalo Presidential Center. He is also a Buffalo Niagara ambassador and serves as a master docent with Explore Buffalo. He loves to tell Buffalo presidential stories during his Presidents in Buffalo walking tours. Peter Schiffmacher is the Chief Missionary Officer and founder of iTours 360 VR, who works with arts, cultural, historical, and educational institutions to create 3D virtual storytelling tours. Peter's 3D capture and virtual tour work spans across the country, but as a native Buffalonian, he is passionate about showcasing the arts and cultural treasures of Buffalo and Western New York. I'm pleased to know both and have them as friends. So now let's welcome both Bren and Peter, who will discuss Buffalo's 3D VR presidential story. Bren, take it away.
Hey, thank you, Dennis. And here we are. I'm Bren Price. I'm next to my pal here, Peter Schiffmacher. And we're here to tell you something about Buffalo's rich presidential history and how you can learn more about visiting us either in person or online. We have so many stories to tell. And let's see if we can bring up this video right now. Yeah. There we go. There's our Buffalo Presidential Center. And I'm wondering how many of you folks know that Cadet Dwight D. Eisenhower spent the Christmas holidays in Buffalo with a West Point classmate and football teammate in 1913. Yes, way back then. His classmate and football mate was Lewis Byrne, whose father was Colonel John Byrne, a former Buffalo police commissioner, and he was also the commandant of the Pan American Exposition Force. How many of you know that former President Herbert Hoover dedicated the new Herbert Hoover Middle School on October 10th, 1951? Or maybe some of you know about the John Quincy Adams visiting Buffalo to lay the cornerstone of an observatory, and he also attended church services with Millard Fillmore. Now, some may say, maybe they're a bit esoteric, for our list of presidential visits, but they are still great Buffalo presidential stories. Now, some of you may have read the Brady Carlson book, Dead Presidents, an adventure into the strange deaths and surprising afterlives of our nation's leaders. Some of you, I know he's spoken in Buffalo on a couple of occasions, but I think what's cogent really today for our talk is the quote that he came up with. Now, mind you, when he wrote this book, he spent hours and hours at the Grosvenor Library, just downstairs from where we are on the second floor. And he did a ton of research. And this is his quote. He said, outside of Washington, D.C., Buffalo has the richest presidential history of any city in the country. He's a PBS and NPR broadcaster, and he really knows what he's talking about. And so, as we have researched this history over the years, we find that we really have a very broad and perhaps unique history. First of all, I think most people would know that we have two resident presidents, Millard Fillmore and Grover Cleveland. Most of us know that McKinley was assassinated in Buffalo and that TR was inaugurated here. How many of you knew that Abraham Lincoln was here 4 times in life and death? I mean, some people ask, well, why is he featured in the Buffalo presidentials? Well, the fact that he was here 4 times, and also he's just one of our most popular and intriguing presidents. We also had 2 vice presidential candidates, Jack Kemp and Bill Miller from the area. A lot of people don't realize that we had 2 first ladies. Of course we would. We had 2 presidents, Abigail Fillmore and Frances Folsom Cleveland, who was born right here in Buffalo. We also have, and we talk about, the 2 ladies who were first. Belva Lockwood, who was one of the first women to run for president, actually officially run for president in 1884 and 1888, and Shirley Chisholm, who was granted, she was on the ballot for the Democratic nomination for president in 1972, and she's buried in Forest Lawn Cemetery. So here it is, the timeline, not including our first 2 resident presidents, Cleveland and Fillmore. We have documented visits by 37 presidents, 143 visits. Now that's pretty darn broad and rich. And so that's kind of the overview of what we have in the museum, but now it's time for Peter to take over and talk about this 3D video tour.
Thanks, Bren. All right. To start off, as Dennis mentioned, my name is Peter Schiffmacher. I'm founder of iTours 360 VR, and I'm more a visual guy than one that wants to just tell you something. So I'm going to play this short little video here, and then we'll.
Everyone has a story to tell. For some, it's their purpose. For others, it's their why. One of the greatest storytellers, Mark Twain, once said, "The 2 most important days in your life are the day you are born and the day you find out why." With Peter Schiffmacher, his story begins with his surname, Schiffmacher, which means ship maker. After searching beyond the name through ancestry DNA, Peter found out that his early ancestors once lived along the southern rim of the Baltic Sea, in an area called Pomerania. Further research revealed that his ancestors may have made Viking longships over 1,000 years ago. Viking vessels that transported people all around Europe across the Baltic and North Seas, Atlantic Ocean, Mediterranean, Black, and Caspian Seas. Fast forwarding to our 21st century, we find that this current-day Schiffmacher is now making virtual vessels that are more like the Starship Enterprise than a Viking longship. That's because Peter's virtual vessels have the Star Trek power to instantaneously teleport anything from anywhere around the world at any time of day into destinations and places they can discover, explore, and boldly go where they may never have gone before. His personal mission is to create 3D VR virtual storytelling tours and digital twins that showcase and digitally preserve the best of Buffalo, Niagara, and Western New York.
So that was just a little story about my why, and now I'm going to give you the story behind the name of the company that I founded, iTours 360 VR. The I stands for immersive, interactive, and illuminating virtual reality tours that are composed of 360-degree panoramas and or virtual reality technologies. The national arts and culturals that I've collaborated include such names as the American Museum of Natural History in New York City, along with the COSI Museum in Columbus, Ohio, who in 2020 was recognized as the best science museum in the country by USA Today. Some of the local arts and cultures that I've collaborated with include the Albright Knox Art Gallery, the Buffalo History Museum, TR Site, Martin House, Buffalo Erie County Public Library, Michigan Street African American Heritage Corridor, OLV National Shrine and Basilica, and the University at Buffalo, to name a few. So what we're trying to do here is bring the masses to the Buffalo Presidential Center via the Metaverse. And what the Metaverse enables you to do is teleport people from around the world into places like the BPC for an immersive, interactive, illuminating, and exciting educational experience. Now, some of you may be saying, well, what is the Metaverse? And the Metaverse, by this short definition, is a virtual reality space in which users can interact with a computer-generated environment and other users. And it's sort of, they call it the other space race, if you will, because a lot of big tech companies are vying for this, building the Metaverse. And one of them is Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook. And in fact, he created a company not too long ago that's the parent company now of Facebook called Meta. And Meta is short for Metaverse. In addition to Facebook, there's companies like Google who are also looking to build out this Metaverse. And I'm going to show you an example here. All the satellite imagery is compiled through AI technology to create a 3D digital model of the world. And we're going to go right into the Buffalo Library and show you going through one of the exhibits, the B is for Book exhibit in the library, and make a turn around the corner and show you where the Buffalo Presidential Center is located. The digital model created using satellite imagery. So that brings us to the entrance point of the BPC. Now, where are we now currently in building it out? Well, we've created a 3D model. We actually captured the space using both photogrammetry and LiDAR technologies, which is the scanning technology. And you can see here in the screen capture that, it creates a digital twin of the museum. And now we're going to dive into or teleport into the actual space. And one thing I wanted to note is that once you have the foundation, the digital twin, you can customize content to suit different applications. So for example, it could be used for marketing, it could be used for education. And I'll show you as we get into the actual model here what I'm talking about.
Peter, we're not able to see that screen.
You're not able to see that? Okay.
No.
How do I get you to see that?
Maybe stop sharing your screen and
Okay.
then try sharing a new screen.
And then share the new one? Okay,
Yeah.
let's try that. Okay. Let's do this and hopefully that'll work. Can you see it now?
Yep, now I can see it.
Okay. So anyways, we're inside that digital twin that I mentioned. And, we can walk down the corridor. We can see the 4 highlighted presidents here, actually 5, I'm sorry. And we could actually go here on the left, there's a directory, you know, that lets you fly to those points of interest. So I'm going to go here to see where Bren is doing his presentation, and he's talking about the presidents.
Washington, D.C., Buffalo has the richest presidential history of any city in the United States.
So you can place video. I'm going to show you also, you know, different kinds of content that you can add to these spaces. Like, for example, different artifacts. You can put copy in that labels, you know, the actual artifacts. You can also put digital photos into the space that allow you to get the detail of the photos. You can also place videos. And all of this is interactive multimedia content. This is a video that was
back at 6:42. We have such a rich presidential history here in Western New York,
channel.
including the fact that it was a Buffalonian who led the campaign that in large part resulted in the holiday that we celebrate today.
That's right. And so on this President's Day edition of the Unknown Stories, we look back on the day that Abraham Lincoln.
I also wanted to show you too that, you know, the different artifacts too can be represented with 3D imagery. So this is an actual 3D model of Abraham Lincoln. Now this was a life mask, not a death mask, but you can see where you can actually zoom in and, you know, see the details. So these are things we can do too. We can scan in artifacts and put them into the actual virtual environment as well. In addition, we can also have 3D avatars that provide guided tours, or you can take this tour and via Zoom or other communication platforms, present a live guided tour right over the internet. One of the other things I wanted to show you was that you can put portals that teleport you into other places. Like this one is going to take us inside the TR site. And we can go right inside there and take the tour within the TR site to learn more information about it. One thing I wanted to mention too is that we can also customize the content. Like we did a curriculum-based tour with the Buffalo Public Schools and the TR site that we rolled out to the 4th graders in the Buffalo Public School system. So as I mentioned before, I mean, marketing is one application, but education is one that really works well with these types of platforms because you can make them interactive.
Take the tour and then take the Buffalo Presidential Center quiz.
There's a quiz that you can take. I'll just do a couple just to show you an example. And it could be a graded or just a you know, an informational result type of quiz. And I just want to close that out if I can. Let's see here. Okay, so, and then the other thing you can do is create scavenger hunts. You can place Easter eggs inside. So what you really want to do is make it engaging. You want to make it interactive. You want to make it an educational learning experience, or experiential learning is the term that we often use. And then this provides sort of the foundation to place all of that interactive content and allow people to teleport inside. And once you are able to build that out, like I said, you can stimulate and facilitate engagement, add to the excitement level, exploration and discovery levels can be taken to another dimension, literally. And, you know, once you put the learning and fun combination together, it's really a powerful combo. And that's something that this technology, this metaverse, you know, allows you to do, especially if you can gamify it. A lot of people are into games today, 3-dimensional games, and this provides you a similar type of environment, except it's used for learning and educational purposes. So what I'd like to do now is open it up for Q&A. If anyone has any questions for me or Bren, we'd be happy to answer them for you.
Well, let's let's begin. Peter, just take us out of Buffalo for a minute to some of the other museums you've worked with. What experience have some of those had with this technology? How are they starting to incorporate it into their business model, perhaps, or educational model, either one or both?
Yeah, well, a lot of times what some are using it for is an actual additional revenue generator. And by that, I mean, you can have a pay per play or a pay per view type setup where these tours can be accessed online through a paywall. And then, those are, some of the ways that you could actually make it a revenue generator. The other thing that can be used is if you're looking for sponsors or donors or other people that may be interested in possibly putting money into the organization or the institution, they can be used for those purposes as well as marketing. Part of the American Museum of Natural History work that I do is for the traveling exhibits, and those traveling exhibits, a way to market them is by using this technology and then allowing other museums to see what these traveling exhibits look like so that they're, hopefully potentially bring them into their museums as well.
Good, thank you. Leah, what do we have questions from our audience?
We do have a few. The first is, how long does it take you to complete an average project?
It's all based on the size. So a larger, square footage area is going to take longer to do. Just to scan the area, I mean, typically it can take on an average of maybe an hour per 1,000 square feet. If you're doing a museum space, it can take longer depending on the number of displays and exhibit pieces. That can make it take, much longer.
Peter, if I can interject here, I think when you were doing this museum, you were here for the better part of a day because we have so much content to look at. We have a lot of text, we have a lot of images, and a lot of smaller spaces. So I think you were here for the better part of a day.
Yeah, I captured a lot of the area, and like you said, a lot of it, unlike if you're doing it for just a home or a piece of real estate, you're looking to adjust the the camera heights and get all the right perspectives, angles on the shots. So it's a longer process than if you were just going into a home, keeping it on a tripod and scanning all at the same level.
Great. And what New York City museums have you worked with? And how do we access your projects within those other museums?
Yeah, the American Museum of Natural History is out in New York City. They, have utilized them for marketing purposes more than, to actually make them publicly accessible at the moment. But they are looking to, eventually take those to the public. Right now, it just suits them better internally. And that's what I found with, many of the projects is they initially do them for internal, and then they will send them out as links to targeted people, to take a look at. Now the TR site locally, for example, is one that you can view on their website. It's right on the homepage. The Martin House is also on, I don't know if it's on their homepage, but you can find that tour on their website as well. I'm just trying to go off the top of mind here. The Basilica, has theirs. You can visit the Basilica and the museum in the basement below it as well. So, basically, if you Google, you can find, their websites, and then if they are showcasing it. Another one that we did was a Presbyterian Church, First Presbyterian Church. That's on their website as well. So
Several examples.
there's several different local and national. Coastside Museum has it on their website too.
Great. We have a two-part question. What are some of your favorite projects, and are there any local spaces you're interested in doing that you haven't gotten to do so far?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, part of what I like about what I do is each one is different. You know, I really like and enjoy all the ones that I capture. In terms of a favorite, I mean, one of the ones that I just mentioned that stands out was the Basilica, only because I think architecturally and with the materials used and so on, I mean, it's one of the more magnificent piece of architecture that I've captured. So that one is probably one of my favorites. But I mean, I love the Martin House. I mean, I've done even the Hull House, you know, and that's one of the oldest stone structures in Erie County. So, you know, each of them has their unique things that they bring, and historic relevance and cultural relevance. And I really, you know, and then in terms of exhibits, the American Museum of Natural History exhibits are phenomenal in how they curate and bring those to life.
Perfect. We have a question for Bren. When is the Presidential Center open, and will you be changing the exhibits?
Typically, we're open on Saturdays from 10 until 4. We do have an exhibit, a special exhibit coming up, in which we're going to be open on Thursday evening from 4 to 7. And on Saturday the 30th, that's Thursday the 28th and Saturday the 30th, because we're going to have a special Lincoln presentation. And we are going to have some unbelievable artifacts, including a life mask that Peter showed on a digital, be here in person to see. We changed most of the exhibits are here for a while, but we do have 2 changing exhibits. Right now, we have one on pets in the White House, and we have a new one coming up a little bit later this spring on bobbleheads and cork tops, presidential and world leaders. That will be a lot of fun for people to come in. So we change those revolving exhibits 3 or 4 times a year to keep it fresh, and they're fresh and fun. So I hope that answers the question. But basically, for the Lincoln exhibit, we'll be open Thursday night, the 28th, from 4 until 7, and then we will be open on Saturdays, every Saturday, from 10 until 4 on the 2nd floor of the Central Downtown Library, where we are right now.
1 Lafayette Square.
Yes.
This is a question for Peter. How many people are involved in a typical production?
Typically, to capture it, it can be one person that does the capture work. Now, if it's a larger, I mean, I've done some commercial work that I was involved in doing a bunch of Home Depot stores, and that's a little different type of capture, and that used multiple people, you know, to capture an entire store. But typically, you know, for the museum exhibits, it can be one person. I mean, there can be other people capturing the video, or we do drone work, you know, on the outside. It can be done simultaneously. We can do 360 drone shots. So, I mean, those other things can be done simultaneously with multiple peoples, but generally to capture a space, it can be one person, as little as one.
Okay. And it looks like we have one more question. First, they want to congratulate Bren and his group on opening the BPC. And then they have a question for Peter about whether your process can be adapted to outdoor sites. They're thinking about historic landscapes like Forest Lawn and the Olmsted Parks and Parkways.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I, not too long ago, did one at Fort DuPont in Delaware. And a lot of that was really primarily the outdoor landscape that we captured. So in fact, you can go, I believe it's fortdupont.org. It should be on their homepage as well if they want to take a look at that. And that was a bunch of aerial 360s that connected all across the campus and provided the stories, you know, and even some of the virtual tours of different buildings on the site as well.
Oh, very cool. And those are all the questions.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, guys. And Lee, if you can stay on a second. because one of the places you'll find, I think you've got a half a dozen on the library website of past exhibits and the B for Books current exhibit, I think is up yet. I know we're getting close to getting it up if it isn't up already. But there's one on slavery that was done a couple of years ago. Different ones that once they're torn down, usually that's the last you see of them. But now you can take a virtual tour of these library. Go to the library website, look under the category What's Happening, and you'll see 3D VR listed, and you'll get a list. The Mark Twain room, for instance, in the library is part of a 3D VR capture. I'm pleased to say with the funding from the Community Foundation special fund that does that, it's been a great project for the Center for the Study of Art, Architecture, and History to help promote and move us into the 21st century, thanks to Peter Schiffmacher and his journey in the world of technology and virtual reality. Guys, that was a great presentation. You did everything I hoped you would do, and I thank you. We're going to have to wrap it up. Any last questions at all, Liam? Anybody else before we go?
I don't see any other questions. That's all.
Great. Then we'll simply say, folks, thanks for joining us today. Hope to see you here again next Tuesday, April 19th on Zoom, as we're joined by Doug Kohler. Doug is the Erie County historian, and as most everybody should be aware, we've done our best to promote it on the Imagine series. Since last April 2021, through this April 2022, we have been celebrating the 200th anniversary of the county, EC 200. The bicentennial has incorporated many activities. Literally every Imagine program has been a component of that. So we've done over 50 Imagine programs that are archived on the library site, trying our best to get a spectrum of organizations, activities here right in Erie County, looking back at their origins and hopefully looking forward to where they're going. We will honor that organizing committee with our annual Imagine Greater Buffalo Recognition Award next week. And county representatives will be here to do so. But our speaker, Doug Kohler, again, will be the primary person who spearheaded that effort in his role as Erie County historian. It's a non-paid role. It's what volunteers do in this community. It's why we organize C-SAAHN to help recognize all the great volunteers that exist in our community. I'm fond of saying every town has volunteers. I just think we've been richly endowed with good people that do their best in all fields, healthcare to education to the culturals, to make Erie County worth celebrating. And that's what we'll do next week. So thanks again. I'm Dennis Galecki. Be well and have a good day.